Hey friends, Ask Robin Black, episode 6. Episode 6. You send in questions. Sometimes they're about fighting. Sometimes they're about life. Sometimes they're about learning stuff. Anything. Send in anything at all. We'll gather a bunch of them. My friend Akasambo will gather them. Mark Manoharan will stay on the other side of that thing and gather podcast sounds and video stuff. Robin Black will sit right here and we'll try to answer them. Super fun. Super fun. You might notice this is a different setup. Did you? I don't know if you did. If you're on SoundCloud or iTunes, it looks different. Let's just put it to you that way. This is some type of saw. Can you see that in the thing? Yeah, sort of. There's a saw right there. This is, we're at Play Dead. This is where we have shot for the last month or so, and it's been really great. We're surrounded by art and creativity. There's a tattoo artist here. One of the reasons we're down here is because Kimmy, Stu's wife, is a hairdresser, and she's working upstairs today. And we could probably work around it, but we thought, let's come down here. And so this is the workshop. This is where, you know, art is made, and so it makes sense to sit down here. We had something we called woodshedding when I used to play in my band, where going into, you know, the weeks before recording maybe, or going into some type of big event where we were making wholesale change, we would woodshed. We would just basically lock ourselves in together somewhere. We did it in London, Ontario, but we did it in our own space before. And Aaron, Mark, and I were talking about woodshedding to try to get together a breakdown. We're talking about maybe Aldo versus Max, something like that. Now, the process of doing a breakdown, I know this is Ask Robin Black. No questions have yet been asked or answered, but hey, shit, this is mine. So, the process of doing a breakdown requires a lot of preparation, editing, building, syncing, writing, putting together, you know, exactly what you want to show in a storytelling way. There's different ways to do it, you know. When Dan started doing them, he has, and John, great guys, and they do great work. They have little clips that they can build, send in some footage, and their team can build it. I'm not sure what their process is, but they're clip, and then you can go in and break it down. And I think that's beautiful. I would definitely do that if I had the technology. But I build mine more as a storytelling device, where we are breaking down some technical or some physical or some mental or some psychological or some philosophical or some other. And we break that down while weaving a tale of some kind. I'm a storyteller. I like to tell stories. So that, anyways, I've already meandered before I've even answered a question this week. We will be woodshedding to try to make that happen in the next month. And that's what this room reminds me of. Again, if you're listening on podcast, hey, thanks, by the way. It's pretty cool. Mark is a pretty obsessive podcast builder, developer now, and consumer. I'm not. I'm generally getting ready to build something. I don't get to consume a lot, but on the weekend I listen to lots of little clips of Rogan because he's an awesome cat, and I haven't listened to his stuff for a while, and man, is that guy smart and weird. Joe, I'm going to be in Dallas on the 13th of May, and you're there commentating that night. Dude, can you come on my podcast? And friends, can you actually, before I even say that, don't bother Joe. I've said this before. I will send Joe a text and see if he has an hour to come on and do a podcast with me. All right, let's answer some questions because that's what we're supposed to be doing here. Thanks for sending them. Thanks to my man Akasambo for gathering them. It's been really great and it's really fun. First question. So got my phone. This is where we're going to find the questions at Natraj Man United. Natraj, maybe his name, Man United, perhaps there's a bunch of men all united. I'm being facetious. I think it's got something to do with a soccer team / football team to the rest of the world. Ask Robin Black, how lucky do you think we are to have enjoyed Swanson versus Choi and Joshua versus Klitschko in the same time period? Now, I could get into those fights specifically, but that would definitely take the entire time. Maybe we'll do a little Joshua Klitschko thing with Ramdeen in the coming days if we can. That really was insanity, as heavyweights go. And I'm expecting, coming up, we got Stipe and Junior. There's the potential for the same kind of, you know, that same kind of back and forth, and I dare use the word drama, which I don't like to use around what they say and how the fighters interact and what their stupid Twitter does. But there is drama within a fight itself, and there was no question that was the case here. But in general, so Stipe versus Junior, that's coming up. I'm pretty pumped. That could be as great a heavyweight mixed martial arts contest as Joshua versus Klitschko was a boxing match. But are we lucky? I mean, if you love combat and if you love the moments in the cage or the ring and you love to watch where it's going and as it changes and as humans are pushed to the next level, of course, lucky in the sense that we feel grateful, I think is the word. Lucky, I don't think so. I don't think there's any luck involved in what we're witnessing right now. I think, and I think the conversation that I'm about to have, I think you could pull some other guy in some dorky shirt sitting in actually he probably wouldn't be sitting in exactly where I'm sitting, but some other sport. A sport where they flip motorcycles upside down, or a sport where people free climb, or how 10 people together can parachute into any of these high level physical and mental human endeavors. I think what I'm about to say, people who study and analyze those things would say exactly what I'm going to say. But we are seeing humans push their limits to large new shores. And there's a number of reasons we're seeing that. But I believe what we're seeing is simultaneous optimization of multiple categories. Okay? I just made that up. That collection of words just came out of my mouth. I didn't write that down anywhere. But I was trying to get to the nucleus of what I think is happening. And what I think is happening is human optimization. So what do I mean? Has this got something to do with Onnit? Am I trying to get an Onnit sponsorship? Actually, Onnit, we would love an Onnit sponsorship, to be honest. No, that's unacceptable, Robin. Unacceptable. But human optimization, what are we talking about? Our ability, and it's something that we've obsessively looked at here, and I'm really fascinated with, but the ability to improving your ability to improve your ability. So not just getting better at throwing a low kick or sauteing onions or, playing this guitar or whatever, but getting better at your ability to get better. And I think that's what we're seeing. Now, are we seeing that in fighting? Yeah, of course we are. If you asked Carlos Condit 3 years ago how the process to get better, he would say it's very hard. You start to plateau, and through what 1,000 hours of work could get you, now 1,000 hours of work will only get you 1% as much. And he was right. But we've had breakthroughs in what we can do now, where Demetrius Johnson in 100 hours can still improve 100 hours worth. Whereas before you would plateau, people would believe the plateau was the end. But you break through these plateaus, and you do it through multiple areas of study. So let me try to be as simple as possible. Fighters are way more, knowledge for one thing is one of the keys. Fighters, and by extrapolation, their team as well, they're way better at nutrition. They know what to eat. They know what to eat to get the maximum amount out of their training, their rest, everything. Great. We've improved nutrition. That's great. That's going to give you a 0.1% improvement. They're also better at the training of the skills themselves. You talk to Duke or you talk to Dwayne, they just aren't the guys who say the right things in the corner, or they aren't the guys who just have the right combinations to teach. They've developed the ability to teach the straight right hand, left hooks, weave underneath, left hook again, or straight right hand, left hook. Yeah, like any of these combinations, any of these fundamental things that maybe 10 years ago took, let's say, 100 repetitions to become a novice and another 1,000 to be the next level, they can do it quicker now because they've optimized the ability to they know which systems to put you through. So think of this for a moment. You're a coach and you have either a young fighter or an advanced fighter, and your job is to get them better at something basic. Jab, low kick. What do you do? What do you do? We don't know. because we're not coaches. I know a little bit and you know a little bit because we've studied a bit of this to varying degrees. But at one time, maybe the best was we throw 1,000 jab low kicks. At another time, we then know when is the right time to do jab low kick against a partner, then to do it in tech sparring, and then to do it in real live events. What is the right amount of those? What is the right amount as a coach to teach that technique, and in which order do we do those? Duke knows. Faraz knows. Dwayne Ludwig knows. They know. So they've become more efficient at teaching it. What is being taught is now such a high level, we don't have to guess what might work in open half guard. We know to a certain degree. It'll change, but currently we know there's been a reduction of the menu of what we're teaching based on what you need to know. All of these things. So every example of that, how we train you to move your feet better, how we train you to recover better, how we train your vision. There are all kinds of ways that high-level athletes train to improve their vision, everything. And so now we have better athletes. That's great. We go back to another aspect of this, why Cub Swanson versus Doo-Ho Choi, or Joshua versus Klitschko, or any number of these ultra fights, mega fights, Rory versus Lawler, Condit versus Lawler. Now, when we take elements of those two fights I just described, there was once a time where we would put together fighters and we would hope that on the night, both were at their best. In that rare occasion where they were both at their physical and mental best, we would have these brilliant fights. Now that ability to get at their physical and mental best has gone from 5 or 10 or 12% to 20% to 40% to, in some fighters, 90%. Reproducible ways to walk into that cage unbreakable for the top guys who have trained for this. So now we're putting together geniuses of combat, more efficient at everything they know, with all of the knowledge in human history about combat, taught by the very best coaches who have optimized the ways of teaching to be able to make these guys better in the best period of time. Rest, rehydration, nutrition, all of these things are together, and now we're also having guys understanding that the performance itself, the ability to perform at your highest level, is something within their trainable control, and they're training that too. Now, all of a sudden, you've got this. And like I said, one, expect more of it. These guys aren't, the best are not going to regress. They're going to push each other harder, and it's going to demand even more from the opponent, which is going to push the training even harder. This is elevating. This is absolutely positively elevating. You're going to see even better fights, even better men, capable of even more. Capable of things that years ago we didn't believe humans could do. And again, we're seeing that in all manner of things. You're seeing it in making computer animation. Whatever it took you to make, you look at these computer animated things, they look human. Now, at one time would take 1 million hours between 100 people. Now it'll take 100,000 hours between 10 people, because the skills, we're building on knowledge all the time. And so we can expect more of this. We can. That's the great news. Expect it to get even better. That's where it's going. And the more we know, the quicker it can be shared, the quicker it can become a part of the knowledge base of all of the coaches and all of the fighters, the consumers themselves, matchmakers, and everybody. The whole thing elevates, and it is the sharing of knowledge and the normalizing of extreme knowledge that is one of the things making this happen. So it's pretty fucking exciting. Also, Mark will please put a link here. Swanson versus Choi. So this will be a link to something I did on YouTube with Monster Zim in Korea. It's number 4. It's number 4 of the 4-piece set that we did. And Cub and Brandon Gibson worked together to explain with me, for you, some of the adaptations he made within the Choi fight. It's a really cool piece. And I'm here to tell you, I'm going to Korea. I'm going to Dallas for UFC 211, where I am now getting Jorge Masvidal. Win or lose, I think he's going to win on Sunday, May 14th, and I'm driving him to the airport. So, Jorge, I'm looking forward to it, man. I'm looking forward to seeing you fight. Then that afternoon, I'm getting on a plane to Korea. And on the 16th and 17th, I will be analyzing and breaking down Do-Ho Choi in Korea. We will be looking at some of his action from that fight as well as other fights. We will go to the gym together and he'll show me, much like Cub did, some of his special techniques and ideas. And then we'll go have lunch and we'll discuss a lot of things about fighting and philosophy and life and martial arts and all that stuff. So Mark has put that link there. You can go check out what I did with Cub. And then we will be doing that with Do-Ho Choi and the Korean Zombie. Just like, why not? Why not also get that genius while we're at it? So we're going to do both of those things, May 15, 16, 17. And so far, my man, Mr. Kim in Korea, has also said that he's going to give me a cameraman for those days who's going to film separate so I can make a little journal, a little travel journal in Korea. If that works and we're able to upload it every night, I'm going to send it to Aaron, and he's going to make a little travel journal. So that'll be on this YouTube site too. Well, maybe 2-3 little mini episodes of my trip to Korea. So that's going to be killer. I'm super pumped about that. Mega pumped. Like, really, like this is my life. You know what I mean? That kind of excited. All right, let's take a look at another thing. This sort of connects marginally to Joshua versus Klitschko, which we'll dig into if we can. I know I can't use that footage, but we'll figure something out maybe in the coming days with Ramdeen. Let me just take a sip of coffee. My ring also hit it. Now I'm like super paranoid about making noises when I drink coffee. Like, I don't know. At Tim Front Kick. If you believe fighting is about fighting, do you then watch boxing / kickboxing / Muay Thai, etc.? If you don't, why not? I like the question, and I like the end part. If you don't, why not? Because I watch everything. I'll watch. So if when I'm in a gym, I am compelled to watch people roll and spar. I have to do it. I have to see what's going on. And when I am rolling or sparring, obviously is the time I can't. And even then, at times it's been hard because I'll catch something interesting out of the corner of my eye. Not when I'm being kicked or punched, but when I'm doing jiu-jitsu sometimes or wrestling, sometimes it happens. But if your focus is good, that is a weakness of my focus. That is not something to brag about. That is me failing to focus on the task at hand and be present in the moment when that happens. But that's a battle that I have to win. But I watch everything. One of the great experiences of my life. So I was just in Russia, and we're probably a day or two away from figuring out if I will be in Russia again after Korea. I am very motivated to do more work for ACB. They're a great organization, really great, really like they have such a killer future, and the fights are amazing, and I'm very motivated to do it. But and I loved my trip there, and I met amazing people, and the fights were fantastic. But one of the great experiences of my life working was going to Russia a different time, 3-4 years ago, and myself, Ramdeen, Pollock, and Corey Erdman, my boy Corey, and Glenn McDonald, our producer and a very good friend and somebody I've learned a lot from. We went to St. Petersburg, Russia, and we commentated the World Combat Games. Now, all three of those guys, at their root, are play-by-play men. And so they were, there was boxing, wrestling, freestyle wrestling, and Greco wrestling. There was fencing, which Ramdeen did. Fencing is amazing, actually. If you look at many of the things Bruce Lee did, especially with that right hand forward, it came from some fencing concepts. It really did. And fencing is a beautiful martial art. Aikido, which is a beautiful art. I know the next time I do talk to Joe in a podcast setting, I want to ask him about Aikido, because him and some of his friends, that's bullshit. Aikido is a philosophy. Aikido is a philosophy of non-resistance. And whatever you want to say about it as a martial art, the idea of not fighting something but allowing it to go is a philosophy that's incredibly useful in all areas of your life. So I'm not willing to throw Aikido under the bus like some of my good friends are. I also, having said that, I didn't commentate that one. We did all kinds of things with swords, Muay Thai, Savat, Sumo, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, belt wrestling, which is a fascinating, it's a variation on sumo, and you've got a belt holding you together. Really cool. A push-pull kind of game. Judo, Sambo. I'm trying to think of any martial art that I can think of, and I commentated it in St. Petersburg. We were there for 18 days. I think the tournament was maybe 12, 13, might have been 14 days. But those three guys were essentially play-by-play men, and I commentated almost everything. I was like, I want to do it all. I want to do it all, Glenn. Put me in everything. And it didn't end up being everything, but it was 70 or 80% of all of the combat from all of those sports. So I came back. There's a lot to be learned from being forced into the deep end, and especially if you're like, put me in the deep end. And it was really, really cool. I really enjoyed it. So I've commentated just about everything. Sumo, Corey and I commentated sumo, and that was quite incredible. You don't really realize until you're right there just how high up they are when they've sort of packed that clay, and they brought people over to hand pack that clay, and they brought a Shinto shrine that they shipped over on a ship, and it was something, the ceremony in that. But yes, I watch anything. It's all relevant to me. I have an interest in, Israeli hand-to-hand combat, and I have an interest in Sistema from Russian military combat, and I have an interest in the idea of what combat would look like with no rules, and of course, I want to watch it all, but I cannot watch it all, because there's more than 24 hours a day worth of combat at our fingertips. There's more than that. And so the challenge, and this is, why am I taking a long-winded approach here? I'm hoping that you draw a connection to this and everything. You realize quickly in life that you can be in one place at one time. And there's a very, very common thing that you're hearing discussed these days, and that is the importance of saying no. Now, that goes really against my basic principles that I started with, which was say yes to everything. So, and one of my basic principles was always say yes to everything, even if it's free. And even beyond that, say yes to everything, even if it costs you money, if you can find that money through some other job or a source. If you can get 3 bartending shifts to get you the money to get on a plane to go commentate that show in that place. Now, over the years, the reason that you have to learn that is because eventually saying yes to that free show means saying no to that big show. And so all of a sudden, you say yes to everything until. And it's really hard for me to learn. But I know that it's true. I cannot. So now you have to know what to say no to. And I was going to say no to UFC 211 if I was on a plane to Vienna to commentate ACB 60. As it is, I don't think ACB 60 is doing an English commentary. So now I can move to going to cover getting Jorge in the car and covering this awesome. And I mean, these fights are unreal, like unreal. But I had to say no to something. And my immediate future is ACB. I might be doing, we're completing our discussions, but I might do 12 to 15 shows for them all over Eastern Europe in the next year. If that's the case, they're my number one employer. I have to say no to something. So you realize you have to say no to something in life, because if you say yes to something, you have to ask yourself, what am I not doing right now? What could I be or should I be doing? And would that thing be more important to my future? And my question is always to the future, not which one will pay me an extra $50. I don't say yes to the gig that'll pay me $100 more. I say yes to the gig that might pay me $100 less, but builds your future. And you have in mind where you're hoping to go, and that thing is that. So that philosophy in life trickles down to everything. Every hour I spend watching an undercard of boxing is an hour I am not spending analyzing Doo Ho Choi. or an hour I am not spending going back and studying the history of mixed martial arts. So you have to focus your time. And again, if we're using the time focus, we're using fighting, as we almost always do. It's the study of fighting and fighters as the philosophy of how we're going to figure these answers out. A fighter may have a maximum. A young fighter might be able to train 20 hours a week physically. That's a lot. That's 4 hours a day, 5 days a week. Some might hit 22. They'll have 2 2-hour sessions 5 days a week and 1 2-hour session on another day. Now, many are doing less. I think Demetrius Johnson might only do 16 hours a week now, because those times are so optimized that he will benefit more from resting in those hours. So he's choosing. He and Matt, they are selecting whether to do another hour of strength and conditioning. Let's say that is watching boxing for me, or spending another hour resting and recovering, which would be studying, Curtis Blades before his fight. So, and that carries over into everything in life. Your most valuable, non-renewable resource is time. If you are trying to accomplish great things, however you define that for yourself, you're going to be, and you're driven to do so, what you are going to start doing is eating up more time in doing that. Now, the only way you'll ever be able to do that in most things is be driven to do something you are insanely passionate about, because then it isn't eating up time at all. It's spending time on the thing that you love, right? Which is why if you can choose or move towards something in your life that you love, every cliche in the book about not working a day in your life becomes true. And that's the only way you can do it. But even to do that, ultimately now you start having issues of time. Can I work harder? One of the guys that I really like, and there's a question that I saw, was something about technology. So Gary Vaynerchuk is somebody I don't consume a lot over the last 7 weeks because we've been building and traveling and studying. But Gary Vaynerchuk is somebody I like to watch his stuff because I feel a lot in common with this man. He studies the changes in technology and how that affects life. And in his case, business, that's his thing. I study the changes in fighting and the martial arts and how that affects life, the lessons we can learn from it. So I connected to this guy right away. The secondary value I got from watching Gary's stuff was that I learned about technology and how it changes and compared that over to fighting. So Gary, some people watch him because they like the technology stuff and they like to see how these things are changing, the internet. And obviously, when I left television primarily to come digital and work for a fight company and go international with Korea and Russia and others, Gary's information about the changing landscape was very valuable to me. So some people watch it for that reason. Other people watch it because he's a crazy character, fun to watch, very entertaining and inspiring. But one of his things is that he will outwork everybody, that more. Okay, that's great. And maybe that will work for you. And sometimes, in many ways, that works for me. It works for Mark. It's what we've been doing from the day he and I met. But even if that's the case, let's say I need 7 hours of sleep to really function the next day, and sometimes I'm only getting 6. But let's say you can survive on 6. That means you have 18 hours a day. You're going to eat some of that. You're going to go to the bathroom, some of that. Let's say you're even a little bit of a rest to recoup. You might meditate. You might work out. Let's say you're really left with 12 hours of hard work you're going to do. Once you work your ass off, 12 hours is not that much. 2 hours starts to become taking care of some of the structural stuff of your business. A couple hours are traveling back and forth to here. A couple hours. Now I have a 4-hour window to study Do Ho Choi, or a 4-hour window to study the Korean Zombie, or to prepare for ACB 61, et cetera, et cetera. You run out of time. But the greatest problem you can have in the world is that you love what you do so much, there's not enough hours in the day to do it. That's a great problem to have. But when you have it, you have to then figure out where to use your time better. And so as a result, when people talk about boxing a lot of the time, I don't know who they're talking about. If it's outside of the top 10 or 15 or 20 most famous boxers, some up-and-comer, I can't know that. Because if I dedicated the 3-4 hours a week to learning that, that's 4 hours a week that I can't go even deeper into a single aspect of how the mind works when it's reading a punch. Or I can't go into the detail of how oxygenated hemoglobin helps somebody recover and what the difference. I have to study that. So you get to the point where the study of your thing may be so all-encompassing that you can't eventually watch everything. So I do end up missing a lot of kickboxing. It's really sad. It's really sad. I love Glory. I end up missing a lot of kickboxing. I end up missing a lot of Muay Thai. There's Muay Thai happening all over the world right now that I'm not going to be able to be aware of. There is collegiate wrestling where some of these studs, I would love to know how good these guys are and what the next generation of their skill set looks like. But it's not possible. There are time crunches on all of these things. And so when you realize that in whatever it is you do, you have to go in and figure out how to optimize that time and where to focus it. And that's a challenge. It's an ongoing challenge for me. Now I think I'm going to need to become one of the world's foremost experts on Russian MMA. When that happens, or as that's happening, I'm going to slowly lose touch with some of the next up-and-comers in the UFC. It's going to be a challenge because there's a fuck of a lot of fighting in the world, and I love it all. I wish I could watch it all. All right. At Nature's Econd, I believe it could be Ecand. My vision is terrible. Robin Black MMA. How is the balance found between unpredictability and improvisation and technique, practice, and efficiency? All right. This is cool. So now we talk a lot about innovation and improvisation. We have been for quite some time. Some of the easy models that come to mind, Tony Ferguson, Lando Venata, and you put them together. What kind of nonsense was that? You know, that was nonsense. It's fantastic. So they're asking about the balance, Nature's Econd. Sometimes there's like a couple of words put together in somebody's Twitter and you're like looking at it. I was like, how can I? It's like a license plate that somebody puts. How is the balance found between unpredictability and improvisation over here and technique, practice, efficiency, etc. over here? Okay, so the balance between those two. It's interesting. I don't think there is a balance in a lot of ways between what you're describing. I think they exist on the same timeline, you know, on the same roadmap to development. Do you know Charlie Parker? If you don't know Charlie Parker, and I'm not a jazz guy, but I'm interested in greats of things, breakthrough people. I'm interested in how they did it. And I'm interested. And so Charlie Parker he's credited with being the granddaddy, even though he died at like 34, I think, the granddaddy of bebop. So he was a jazz sax player or horn player who was the top of the top in creativity, improvisation, soloing. And if you are a jazz student, maybe you can tell me, I know that he innovated many different things that have now become pretty standard. And there are fighters obviously doing this as well. Charlie Parker, I've got a quote from him, and it says, "Master your instrument, master the music, and then forget all that bullshit and just play." So Charlie Parker said that the key to his development, so he died with cirrhosis of the liver and a number of all kinds of stuff. And the coroners thought he was in his 50s, and he was or 50 to 60. He was 34. He became a heroin addict, and when he couldn't find heroin in New York, he later medicated with alcohol instead. So it was a mess, which is tragic. Even in those moments where there are recordings of him drunk and spinning around the room that are considered just absolutely brilliant, but don't anybody, especially if you're young, get the mistake that somehow that was beneficial to him. He was brilliant despite that sickness. So master your instrument, master the music, and then forget all that bullshit and just play. So somewhere he started playing, I believe, 4 or 5, 6 years old, I believe. I'm not 100% sure of that. But in his low teens, he said that he spent 3 years playing, practicing, developing his skills 15 hours a day. That was mastering his instrument, right? Then as he started to get into the world of music and playing music, and he started mastering these ways to use chord progressions and the like to create different music. But by the time he had mastered those steps, he didn't have to think about any of those things at all. And that's where you're truly creative, innovative, improvisational, boundless. That's where that exists. If you have watched any of our shows on Artists of Life, there's a Dr. Joel Lapata, and he studies creativity, and we had a long conversation about it, and it was very interesting. It was interesting to me. I hope a lot of people got a lot out of it. I'm going to follow up with Joel in the next. Well, I'm going to Korea, but after that, and catch up and get his thoughts on where we're at with some of this stuff. But so now let's go back to the question, and then take what Charlie Parker had to say. How is the oh wait, there is a second. Oh no, sorry. How is the balance found between unpredictability and improvisation on one hand, and sort of technique and efficiency and practice on the other? And the truth is, one doesn't exist without the other. Actually, technique, practice, and efficiency can absolutely exist without unpredictability and improvisation. In fact, for much of its time, of its life, it exists without that. It's great. You're always trying something. So you have low levels. Mark dropped his phone. It looked like he caught it with his foot a little bit so that the foot cushioned the blow. But when you start out, you're practicing technique. Charlie Parker on his saxophone for 3 years, 15 hours a day. In the beginning, whether it's whatever the tools are, and in fighting, it might be drilling, it might be repetition, it might be working with a coach, it might be mitts, it might be rolling, whatever it is, we're going to do that as great students for a long, long, long time. And we'll start to develop some ideas. Oh, well, coach, what if I try this? And a good coach will say, well, try it, go do it. And it'll be encouraged, particularly in the right athlete or artist. You have a talent for this. You have an ability to move towards it. You're comfortable in the chaos and the unpredictability. Let's encourage you to do more. But somebody who doesn't have root fundamentals, trying to be unpredictable and improvisational, it's good fortune if they do well. They don't win because they're great. You are never great without those 3 years of 15 hours a day in the bedroom that Charlie Parker put in. You're not. You can't be. No one is. And if you find me, anyone that is at read the book by the greatest wide receiver ever in the NFL, and the guy who invented Windows, and the guy who broke the record for the fastest anything, and the greatest fighter. None of them will tell you that they were born with it. They will all talk about that Charlie Parker window where they worked their brains out. And like Charlie said, he learned the music, he learned the instrument, he learned the music, and he forgot all that bullshit. Once they're that good, and they've developed the muscle and the artistic flair to be creative and unhinged and improvisational, it starts to take over by itself. Although in that link that Mark linked earlier, if you watched it, if you did watch it and you're back, thanks for coming back, because sometimes you get down those rabbit holes on the internet, especially when you're smoking weed and you're watching old hip hop or something, and you never come back. Cub can tell you after what he did, but he wasn't thinking about it. He was almost watching himself do it. And those brilliant artists, that's what they do. So you will not... I was going to say in absolute that you will not see somebody who is brilliantly improvisational without having done the hard work first. But that's probably untrue. There are, and like Dr. Joel mentioned, there are different, you can develop the improvisational creative muscle as well. It is a muscle, it is developed, it is trained. It's also, there's a genetic component to it. But for the most part, to a man, to a woman, every single one of those greats, we'll talk about that. Bruce Lee has a quote too. And I've used this one before because it's brilliant, and I will many times again. And I'll refer to it myself many times. Learn the principles, abide by the principles, and then dissolve the principles. Just similar, it crosses over with what Charlie Parker said. You go in and the fighter puts in those, he can't do 15 hours a day, but he can study it, he can watch it, he can watch breakdowns, he can talk about it. He can start to see it differently. He can study the mental stuff. There are other things you can study. But they'll woodshed, like we are down here. These athletes will woodshed for long periods of time, develop their creative muscles, and then they'll allow it to happen. And now, I've told this story on one of our podcasts before, but Lando Venata is one of my favorite young artists, and I hope that he continues to evolve, and I believe that he will. And after his last fight, he lost. Him and Brandon were talking about, although we will never discourage him, and he should never discourage himself or edit himself away from the creative flair and the artistic expression of the way he fights, but we're not going to do it at the expense of getting in the time and getting sharp and getting fit and getting rested and getting healthy and building his body. They're not going to sacrifice one for the other. They're going to work on them together. But thank you for the great question. I really enjoyed that a lot, and I enjoyed thinking about that a lot. All right, the Akasambo. I'm glad Akasambo still sends questions in addition to housekeeping all of this, and it's very kind. I've got a couple other people coming in to the team in different ways. Ruben, a friend of ours, we'll talk about him on Fighting is About Fighting if we tape that tomorrow. He's going to help me sort the Patreon page so we can start taking care of the people. Patreon.com/Robin Black. There's been people that have donated their money and their efforts and their help to us to try to improve our equipment, and maybe even one day have a little bit of extra money to be able to like give Mark $100 a month or something. The guy's fucking working his brains out. So Ruben is going to help us organize that page so we can bring people in to chat, people who are patrons, and bring them in together and make more stuff specifically for that. So that's cool. It's good to have you, Ruben. Thank you for that, man. And the Akasambo has been great, and I really love them. From your experience with high-level coaches, do you think that their way of teaching martial arts is influenced by philosophical ideas, or do you think that teaching martial arts is in and of itself an expression of philosophy? Okay, thank you. That's a really cool little thought to go down. So we're talking about high-level coaches that I've trained with and studied in some cases, and do we think their way of teaching martial arts is influenced by philosophical ideas, or do you think their teaching martial arts is in and of itself an expression of philosophy? Okay, so the very first thing we have to do, if we're going to treat this as best we can, is we have to define philosophy. So let me pull up a very basic definition of what we are calling philosophy. Philosophy, the study of the fundamental nature of knowledge, reality, and existence, especially when considered as an academic discipline, especially when. So not only when, so we're going to remove that. Especially when, hey, for example, like when we study philosophy, right? But it says especially, so it doesn't mean only. So the study of the fundamental nature of knowledge itself, reality, and existence. Then, the sub-descriptions are a particular system of philosophical thought, or the study of the theoretical basis of a particular branch of knowledge or experience. That definition right there, the study of the theoretical basis of a particular branch of knowledge or experience. So let's change that slightly. a particular branch of knowledge or experience. Our particular branch of knowledge or experience is the martial arts. So we're going to replace the particular branch of knowledge or experience with the words the martial arts. So, philosophy, the study of the theoretical basis of the martial arts. Right? I mean, the martial arts is philosophy. It's a physical philosophy. And that physical philosophy allows you can use it to use philosophical thoughts and ideas to train the martial arts. And then you use the training of the martial arts to apply back to anything. So the martial arts is just one way of self-knowledge. It's the more you think about it and the more you go down this and the more you look at using the things that you learn in fighting, in training, in growth, in failure, you apply them to everything. There's all kinds of quotes about self, knowledge of self. I mean, there's thousands of them. But to know anything starts with knowing yourself, right? And it's something we should do. It's something we need to do. You don't have to do it by training martial arts, although I encourage you highly to do it. But a very good beginning for people is meditation. It's really fucking powerful. It really is. You start with 10 minutes a day. And the easiest way, I am in no way paid to say this. I pay retail for this. The easiest way, and I don't use it all that much anymore now that I've found some other possible ways, but I still use it, is, what is it? What's my Headspace. It's an app. Get it for your phone. The first month is free, and then it's like $7 a month or something. And you click on it, and it'll be like a little timeline. Put some headphones on. Wonder what this is. Like literally, you can't not do it. You press the one button, then the dude's voice will come on and tell you to sit comfortably. Then he'll teach you how to breathe, and then he'll get you gently assessing your own physical nature. And then gently, while breathing, following your breath. It's so simple. And like anything, you start out as a white belt in it. And you sit there asking yourself these questions. Am I doing it? Is this meditating? Oh, wait, I'm thinking. Okay, I'll try to go think about the breath again. That's better. Okay, I'm thinking about the breath. No, I'm thinking about the breath. That's normal. That's what meditation is. I told Ramdeen to meditate. And and I'm going to tell him when we go do TKO. We might be doing some shows in Red Deer and Medicine Hat also in June. Havoc FC is a great show in Red Deer, and I got a lot of friends out there. I hope we're doing it. But I'm going to get him on it again. I'll let him hit his vaporizer first if he needs to, but I'm going to get him on it again. And he was like, I can't really do that. I just keep thinking. That's the point. You're training that. Like, of course you can't. You're a white belt. You're training the fat. Of course you hear the monkey brain. That's what you're training, is to get rid of the monkey brain. So of course you start with it. You're a white belt. But meditation is so powerful. And I mean, I really appreciate the people that send me notes and say that some of my ideas help them. And I'm just a guy who studies martial arts and tries to find some cool lessons in it. And sometimes they're good. And sometimes it's just I'm searching, and maybe like watching somebody search for answers. But sometimes I know that there are some good things. And some people really send me really nice comments. And that's great. Or they got an idea or an inspiration for something. That couldn't make me happier. But just do this one for me. And again, I pay retail for Headspace. I'm just saying it's one of the easiest ways to do it. Just go on your app store and look for Headspace, and then put some headphones on, sit somewhere quiet, and try the first one. And then try to do it 10 minutes a day for a week or two. Your life will get better. It'll also probably make you start thinking, hey, maybe training jiu-jitsu would be cool. So I'm a little biased because I want everybody to train martial arts. I think the world would be a better place if everybody trained the martial arts. I know that without a shadow of a doubt. Almost everything in the world would get fixed if everyone trained martial arts. And you don't like martial arts? There's one for you. you know? And if you don't, you want the softest possible, there's Tai Chi. There is yoga in its own way is a form of martial arts, at least a form of self-study. So anyways, Aksambo, thank you for your question. The martial arts are a philosophy, and philosophy in its own way can be studied through the martial arts. I think that's without question. And my tangent here is because I really think everybody would benefit so much from studying themselves. It made my life so much better, and I'm a white belt or a blue belt in self-knowledge. I really am. And if I can tell you that in that, the couple of years I've been really trying to learn about myself and watch myself and ask, like I still will have a freak out, or I'll still get angry at something I shouldn't, or I'll still have all the reactions that we all humans have. But then I'll look at myself and go, why did I do that? How was that my fault? Because it was your fault. When you get in a fight with somebody, it is 50% your fault. Could be more, but it's always 50 every single time. And you study yourself a little bit and you start to see that. And then you forgive yourself and you make yourself a little better. I mean, shit, again, we don't have any rules here. We don't have any rules except for one. You have to get better at stuff. You have to learn something. You have to study something. And you have to grow. And the best thing you could study is yourself. Really. There's just no doubt about that. And we talked earlier about getting better at getting better. The study of self has helped that. Ask Dominic Cruz how much better he learns everything, even than he did 3 years ago or 4 years ago. And he'll tell you it was when he was injured and he was forced to do the work up here, that's when he really grew. Thank you for the great question. Duff_Diggler. I have a question for Ask Robin Black. What's it like having people know your personal business? Like job searches and stuff. I never really thought of that, Never really did at all. It's become very normal. It's really neat. So when I worked at television, and then I've done stuff for the UFC, and in the world of fighting, people kind of know me a little bit now over time. Some of those breakdowns got combined, they got many, many millions and millions of views, which is really neat, right? So some people know me. And then people stopped me on the street. I don't know where I guess probably Vice magazine. Thanks, Sarah, for writing that kind article. So the week that Fight Network laid off 8 or 9 of us, a number of people covered it or talked about it, or, a lot of people tweeted the UFC and said, hire this man immediately, which is really nice. And Vice magazine wrote an article, and there were others, but that's probably the biggest one. And that week, 4 people stopped me on the street. Hey, man, heard what happened, Damn, don't worry about it. Really nice stuff. Really nice stuff. And, for every weird thing that there might be with somebody knowing your business, there's so much more nice things. There's so many more kind things and stuff. I never even thought about that until that was asked. It never even crossed my mind at all. It just seemed like the most natural thing to do. And Mark and I talked about it from day one. Does this go up? Nope. Put it up. We talked about it from day one to document the journey. That just, as soon as that idea hit me, I was like, this is going to be really fun. I'll be able to look back at it one day. That's the thing. It's people see it, but I get to see it. And I want to be able to be historically correct on some things that I saw coming, and some things and I want to be able to look back and remember, oh, wow, this is what I knew about fighting. It wasn't as much as today. We learned this was the period where we unlocked these ideas. And it's an ongoing thing. And I think that I really, and I'm not alone. The internet's full of people telling you all their fucking shit, all their stuff. Sorry, I swear a lot lately. I shouldn't do that. It's unnecessary. There are times that swearing really gives you an impact, which is why Anthony Robbins and people like that actually use it now, these people who lead people. And then other times where it just makes you sound uneducated. And I think I just used it in one of those uneducated moments. But I never really thought much about it. But then all of a sudden, all these people were saying nice things to me. And then now It's very normal. I realized, like, you know, I was blah, blah, blah. I was in Mexico with my family, yada, yada, yada. Oh, my wife's away. It's just really normal now. Very normal. And it's nice. I don't know. I feel like I have way more friends now. You know, I feel like you guys are all my friends because I talk to you. The sad part is I don't get to talk to you. And sometimes there's thousands of you. So I wouldn't even be able to if I could. But that's why I guess it's nice when people send a question or they leave a comment somewhere or they hit me up on Twitter and say something. I try to always answer on Twitter. I can't answer everywhere. It's, you know, again, we talked about time earlier. You know, Conor McGregor at one time tried to answer every single person who messaged him. Now, obviously, one day that became unsustainable, right? I am not Conor McGregor, nor will I ever be as big at anything as Conor McGregor is. But he is just an illustration that one day you can't do it anymore because those hours in that day, you wanted to use that other hour to break something down or you have a new baby or something. But right now I still can. And so I do. And so I really appreciate people hitting me up on Twitter. Instagram is the thing I'm trying to figure out now. On an old Ask Robin Black, not that we did over at the old network, it was one word with a hashtag back then. Now it's 3 words. On an old one there, I talked about a book called Deep Work by Cal Newport that I really like. It's really great. And that book looked at the shallow interactions that we have with the world, quick emails at work that don't, you send 40 emails every time you really only needed to send 2, and being on Twitter and Instagram and Snapchat and all those things, and how doing that type of work fragments your thinking so you cannot go as deep. And going deep, because it's so rare, is valuable. The way that those breakdowns happened was because, and the reason they were different was because they took 40 or 50 hours to build. You know, just gathering, 20 fights takes 5 hours, and watching 20 fights takes another 5. And then breaking them down in slow motion and then assembling the pieces. And it took a long time. So they were rare and because they were deep. So I'm trying to find the balance between being able to connect with people and share fragmented ideas and be able to do deeper work like breakdowns and analysis. So that's an ongoing thing. If anyone has any ideas about it or anything, please let me know. The big one that I find often is if you schedule the deep work. And when you schedule it, okay, today from 3 till 7, I'm going to be analyzing the Korean Zombie to find the important clips to bring to Korea for my trip. When you schedule that, you schedule 15 minutes before it. Meditating is great, or just some kind of quiet to get that monkey brain under control and get a little break from all of the, the social media and the really fast stuff. And then you close all the tabs on your computer because you can't be into the deepest moment of what's happening in the body chemistry of the Korean Zombie under duress at minute 2 in slow motion and see a Facebook little 1 pop up on there. It'll break you out of depth. So you schedule the deep work. That's what I've been doing so far, and it's been working pretty well. But it's an interesting thing. We work in digital now. This is the world we work in, the modern world, and the modern world has to keep up and to do it and to do your job properly in 2017 and 2018, 2019. Requires multitasking, and multitasking by nature is doing a bunch of things not quite as well as if you focused on one thing. So that's something that has to be worked on. It's something we're going to come back and talk about again, which is an interesting place to get after somebody asked about my personal business. But this is what we do. Okay. At Alexander Demota. Tough Redemption. You watching it? Thoughts? I'm on TJ's side. Cody's a raged meathead, and Uriah's a con, in my opinion. And then he continues. I hope you've seen Tough 25 and change. This might be somebody else or him. I hope you've seen Tough 25 and change your opinion on Cody. He's a classless, raged meathead of a delinquent. Thoughts? Love it. Okay, he's got another one here that I will get to separate. But thanks for sending me some questions, man. It's fun interacting with you. No, I have not watched it. And I will not watch it. But I fully endorse your immersion in it and how much passion it's given you. I love that, man. It's fucking great. Again, I swore. I didn't need that. That was an unnecessary word. I like it. I like your passion, and I like how it's drawing you in. I don't watch it because of exactly what we talked about earlier. And I think the first episode, correct me if I'm wrong, somebody said it was 3 hours. I'm sure it was probably 2 hours. I'm sure I got that wrong. But 2 hours off the top, and then an hour a week for 10, 11 weeks. That's 13 hours. And then any amount of, if you get engaged in it, you're going to spend at least an hour or two every week looking around at the fallout, or maybe watching some other stuff they did, or going on Cody's Instagram and calling him a meathead or whatever. So we're into 25 hours. I ain't got that kind of time. Because 25 hours I will spend on tough is 25 hours I will not spend analyzing fights. Now, and again, we were talking about no to things and figuring out how to maximize your time. If I had 25 more hours, I would get in much more glory in Muay Thai and boxing. If I had it, which I don't. So you have to specialize your time. You know, and it's tricky. It's tricky as you start to evolve in the thing that you do, or the thing you love to do, and you're looking for the next direction in what you do. There are people who will be a generalist. They can tell you every piece of news. They're news generalists. They'll tell you every piece of news in the world. Then there's people who are fight news generalists. If news was announced today, they'll tell you what it was. I have no idea what that stuff is because I don't watch any of that either. I watch the fights themselves, and then the fights that led to those fights, the fights that they fought coming up. I watch the fights of the international guys that I think are the next guys. I watch the fights for all the Russian guys that I'm studying now that I haven't seen before. I will break down the fights of the top 2 guys at ACB 61. I'll break down the top 6 fights of the Korean Zombie and Do Ho Choi to get the moments of those fights to be able to analyze with those guys. I'll go into the gym and analyze movement and fighting and the next thing. If I get a break, I have friends that are in the fight game that I can then combine my work with pleasure and go for lunch with one of them and talk about fighting. That's where I'm going to spend it. So I just don't get to do it. Also, I don't really dig it. I don't dig the reality shows. I've done some. I don't like them. There's a number of things about them that I don't personally like. And I don't want this to be talking you out of watching this, because if you like them, you like them. You don't need to let my view color you or change you at all. Okay. So please don't. But one thing about it. So also, I'll try to do it quick if I can get to my Twitter. There's probably been a bunch since, but so your comments on Cody, he's a meathead, he's a raging meathead, and Uriah's a snake and stuff. When I look down, you were responded to, or other things like that was responded to by others on my guy Steve Jeffs, who's Steve_Simpson, I believe. You boys button into selectful editing. TJ is a snake, no loyalty. Faber made him no loyalty to Team Alpha Male. Don't believe. Watch Cody with that kid. Okay, so now Steve is a brother, and I've communicated with him a tons. I respect his loyalty to his team. So now what you've got here is Steve and you, who have opposite ideas of exactly what is going on here. So for the purpose of them, what they are hoping from the TV show, bang on, right? If I was going to watch it, I would be tuning in at the fights. Why? Because having done reality TV and working in it in a number of different ways, they are successfully having you two guys see the same thing and disagree fully. Now, Steve, the reason that he's not buying into what you're buying into is because he knows that that's just selective editing. Hey, Steve, the thing you're buying into could be selective editing too. You know what I mean? You saw one thing, and you're damn sure that's the thing. But now you've seen the opposite. You're not buying it because you know what you saw originally is the real thing. That Cody's cool, man. TJ's the real snake. Which one is selective editing? They're both selective editing. These aren't these people, right? These are not these people. Everything you've seen has nothing to do with these two human beings, these two combat artists. Nothing whatsoever. Neither one is what you see. Neither one. Which is why I don't watch reality TV. Now, it's a really neat thing. This just hit me. So people at one time believed pro wrestling was real. Then later, they kind of knew it wasn't real, but they just sort of like let that go and kind of still behaved like it was real because it was way better when they believed it. And then over time, to maintain professional wrestling as a thing, they had to, and by then you'd fall in love with it and people loved it, whoever likes it. Then they had to go into what they were looking at was the writing of it. And they were anticipating, what are the writer? Who's going to win WrestleMania? You guys know it's scheduled, right? Like, it's predetermined. But so we once thought it was real. The Hulkster is going to win WrestleMania. And then we knew it wasn't really real, but let's all just act like it is real. And then later you get to the point, okay, it's not real, but I mean, who's going to, how are they going to play this? And so now people started to anticipate how the storyline was going to be written, right? In reality TV, both of you guys are at still, it's not real, but it's way more fun when you act like it's real. That's where you guys are at, which is why I endorse your decision to watch it and why I absolutely endorse your decision to argue about it. But neither one of these guys are these guys. Neither one. I've spent time around them and around regular people and not in environments where there's 4 lights at them and 4 producers standing over there and somebody with a notepad sitting there. Oh, God, Cody had a freak out moment. Let's put that into category C so that when we compile it. And, oh, TJ had a snake in the grass moment. And there's people there writing it down. That's not real. It's like pro wrestling. But, so I hope I didn't ruin anything for you guys with that. I still, by all means, man, there's all different kinds of entertainment in the world. But just understand. And so we can take this a step further while we're at it. Why not? This is our show, right? Look at this thing. Look where we are. It's so fun. So we can take this a step further. So one of the things that I often see people when they are engaged in this type of immersion in storylines of things is they assign meaning to something and then say, that guy showed his true colors. Now, I have a feeling often, I don't think those are older people. I think that's a younger thing, but I could be wrong. I don't know. I've seen people do this over a tweet. I've seen them do it over a tweet. I once tweeted that Ariel Helwani was a taxi and I was an Uber. It was 8 o'clock in the morning. I had no idea that the guy had what was going on with this thing or that there was a big commotion. Ariel's a buddy. And we laugh about it all. Whenever I see him, we'll throw a laugh comment back. And that was a single tweet. And to this day, people would be like, you showed your true colors, bro. You really think a tweet? Because here, I'll take it even a step further. United Airlines. Right? United Airlines, they roughed that guy up. They're pieces of shit. They showed their true colors. Does it occur to you? This just was horrible, there's no doubt. Did it occur to you that on the very same day, 13 or 15 or 30 acts of extreme kindness could have also taken place on United Airlines flights? Somebody walked an old lady in and took care of her. Somebody else waived a fee on a bag because helped somebody with a baby. Anything. There could have been dozens that day alone. Dozens of acts of kindness committed on United Airlines flights. But somehow, I don't know why, we want to. Oh, see, Cody's a raging meathead. Cody's a human being. He's 23 or 25 years old. He's been
his life has been created by a combination of all of his experiences, from the time that he was a child, to the things he's read, to the things that he's heard, to the way others have treated him. You know, he's a human just like you. And the same people who will point and say, I knew that guy was a scumbag, on a single tweet, or on one thing that they see somebody say once when they're exhausted or ultra tired or sad, or they just got yelled at by somebody. The same people themselves do things every day, every single day. People, they yelled rudely at their mother. You know, they screamed at their mother and they called her a bitch. You know, or they threw something, or they stormed out of something, or they told somebody off, or they, you know, had a road rage incident, or they were mean to somebody, and it could have been because they were mistreated that day. It could have been because of how they were mistreated in their life. Could be exhaustion, could be fatigue, could be confusion, could be fear. You all do it. Every single person does it every single day. But yet you're all, not you, but many of us are so ready to see somebody else just like them, having a moment just like them, and assign meaning that somehow this means that that person is terrible, even though when you know you're a good person and you did a terrible thing sometime this week. You know? I don't know why I'm going off on that tangent, but sometimes I just worry about all of us. You know? I do. I really do. Life is so good, and people are so good fundamentally, you know? That nature to pick either Cody or TJ and assign meaning to what you've been presented, which is not real, that carries over. All of a sudden you make judgments about people from Cameroon, or you make judgments about people over 6 feet tall, or you make judgments about liberals or Republicans, or you make judgments about women, or gay people, or people of a certain religion. This nature to do that is in us. And you have to try to not do it. You know, it's not good. It's not good. I know I just said, by all means, enjoy the show, because it is that's the harmless version of it. But you can see how people smashing each other in the face at a Trump rally, one so excitedly for and one so excitedly against, they're just two people. Anyways, I didn't mean to get all deep on this, but these are things we think about, right? There was another question. We got about 15 more minutes. All right, on our technology. Okay, quick one. Who's your favorite up and coming prospect in the UFC? I don't know if Duho Choi's still a prospect, but he's my favorite. I don't know if we'll call him still a prospect. Or Lando, Groovy Lando. Those are my favorite. People like Francis Ngannou. I like Curtis Blades. In that division, I think Curtis Blades is the man. And he lost to Ngannou. Doctor stopped it, but doctor doesn't stop it. We don't know where that goes. We don't know. I like Curtis Blades. Go check him out. You've probably seen a few of them suplexing dudes in the air and stuff, but he's very good. Diakisi, I like. There's some great Canadian prospects. Gavin Tucker, obviously, who in Halifax had a phenomenal night against Sam Cecilia, and he had a great night. His responsibility and his team's responsibility now is work on being able to be in that moment like that. And it will not be a one-off if it is reproducible, and it is finding that pocket. And I think he'll do it. On the same card, Ayman Zahabi, man. Ayman Zahabi had a tough night. I think he lost a round, and he was pushed to the limit. And I think that'll make him unbelievably good. So I got some Canadians on there, too. I wrote these ones down. Yanni Sherbatov, he was on one of the toughs, the one where the world champions got ready to fight DJ. I know he was injured during that. He's going to ACB from... Oh, I hope I'm allowed to announce that. Well, hopefully by the time this comes out, I'm allowed to announce that. He might be anyways. I don't know if that's actually happening. If so, I'm going to commentate that guy, I think. I haven't announced that yet either, but it's coming. And, oh yeah, Tony Laramie and TJ Laramie. Go back and watch TKO. I think it was 38, maybe 37, maybe both. Both those fighters are fantastic. TJ's got on the raw end of 2 losses, but it's only going to make him better. Tony is a little demon. He's like 18 years old. Why I like him so much is what he will become, not what he is. What he is spectacular. As long as he's thinking about what he's going to be at 24 and at 27, he could be one of the greatest fighters we've ever seen. I mean that. But that is not determined. This is not predetermined. It's about what he's going to do from now till then. But I love the kid. I do. Last thing, and we're going to circle back to this next week. I want to leave you with this thought. So it was Alexander Demota. I hope I didn't bring you down, brother, on my deep shit. Thoughts on UFC's problems. Then his examples are Reebok, flawed USADA, weight cutting, unfair pay, ranking slash title shots, WME, IMG, etc. Okay, very quickly, we're going to come back to that. We're going to come back to the UFC big picture. I know I prefer to talk about fighting a lot, so I've thought about this in terms of combat. That the UFC is a country that is conquering. So I've thought of the UFC as ancient Rome and how their armies, the battles that they have to face. And that is a way that I often find, if you can use a combat analogy and apply it to something, you can figure out I can, because that's how I think now. My brain is wired. I've got pathways built that way now. But whatever your thing is, if wine is your thing, or painting, or guitar, you can think about how you studied the guitar and how you overcame something and how you strung something together and the process of becoming a great guitar player. You can apply it to this if you gather enough information. So that's what I tried to do, and that's how I'm going to look at it. But I don't think a lot of these are problems. Reebok is not a problem. The fact that people hate it is good, because these days, turmoil, conflict, controversy is powerful. So I don't see that as a problem. I'm just going to touch on a few of these. Flawed USADA. USADA is the company. I mean, I don't think that's a problem. These are talking points. Talking points engage people. And when people are engaged going, this sucks, Reebok sucks, and somebody else is going, actually, I don't know if anybody's. But it's people talking, conflict. I mean, grab her by the pussy was in part of becoming the president of the United States. So think about it, right? Like, it's not a problem for your company if people are mad about something, as long as they're still buying. Actually, I don't know if they're buying Reebok, but they're buying the UFC. USADA is its own company. USADA, they're their own company. I don't think, nobody seems bothered by steroids anymore. I don't think that's a problem. Weight cutting. We'll talk about that. I've been pushing that one off. One thing I will tell you, you choose the weight you fight at. It's the fighter's fault 100% of the time. What we can do about it, we'll discuss that in a future episode. But you choose the weight you fight at. You sign a contract to weigh this weight on this day. That's your fault. And that's what needs to be, that's the way it needs to be presented, and that's the way it needs to be looked at. It's not weight cutting's fault. It's your fault when you miss weight. And all the other fighters think so. And all the other coaches think so. And we need the audience to think that too, because having negative opinion about you is one of the repercussions of missing weight. It always has been, as long as weight cutting has been involved in wrestling or boxing or anything. We'll talk more about it in the future. Unfair pay. That one's going to change, because there's just the nature of a free market. It changes. Rankings, title shots. I don't care about those things. So I'm not trying to undermine you. What I'm trying to illustrate is most of these things that we think are problems are not problems. If people are talking, you're trying to get them engaged in whatever it is you do. So you sell, protein shakes. Man, you hear there's a worm in that protein shake. A lot of people are clicking on that site. Now, a lot of people are not going to buy that protein shake. But if you're selling t-shirts there, you're fine. It's the nature of the world that we live in. Controversy sells. Nothing sells better than controversy. So this stuff's all good. They do have some real threats, but they have the same threats that McDonald's, Coca-Cola, ESPN, this microphone stand company, every single company is ripe for disruption right now. When you study it from the point of invading armies and defending your territory or growing your territory, I mentioned Gary Vaynerchuk today. I'm going to take things that I've learned from watching his deal. Again, my real affinity for the man is, one, I enjoy watching his stuff when I can, but two, the way I look at fighting and the way I look at its ever-changing nature being the most important part of trying to understand it, he looks at technology and how it affects the world we live in. So we're in very different paths, but I relate to his line of thinking, but I'm going to try to apply some of the things that he talks about and discuss how a company like Coca-Cola or the UFC become ripe for disruption. And my last thought on it, Bob Lefsetz, Lefsetz. He has a letter called the Lefsetz Letter. His world is the music business and entertainment business. Mine is fighting. Gary's is technology. Bob Lefsetz is music and entertainment and how that relates to his life. So we're all on a similar path with different things. Bob Lefsetz was talking about HBO, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and so forth. And here's something he said. And subscribe to his letter. Even if your music isn't your thing, very quickly you get into some really interesting stuff with his blog. HBO has become an institution. So he was talking about television, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, because the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame was on HBO. HBO has become an institution. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame has become an institution. Rock and roll itself has become an institution. And institutions are all about self-preservation. They abhor change. So your job as a part of the culture moving forward in life often is to tear them down. We tear down our institutions. The institutions want everything to stay the same because they build reproducible systems where they can scale it and make more Big Macs or more, HBO related things. HBO does great work, by the way, and a Big Mac is tasty and the UFC rules. These are not in any way judgments, but when you go and you do the same thing, to be able to make more, there's 41 shows a year in the UFC. To be able to make more, you must create systems. Those systems become very samey and there's a commodification that happens. That's what's at risk for the UFC in the future. They're very smart. Dana's ultra smart and their team is brilliant. But I do want to dig into that a little bit because it's a fascinating thing. How the world that we live in, we're seeing disruption in martial arts. Disruption in martial arts looks very much like Airbnb disrupting the hotel world. But by studying disruption in the martial arts, now I'm able to look at how disruption happens in business. And the UFC, McDonald's, Coke, the biggest, ESPN, the biggest in the world, they're ripe for it. So we'll talk about that another day. But it's been a really fun slice with you guys. Mark has given me the wrap up because we have limits to our technology. Thank you to our patrons. You're going to help us improve this technology, and we appreciate it. Ask Robin Black, episode 6. We'll do episode 7 soon. Black out.